This is a video demonstration of how to work a German short row heel for a sock. This method can be used in either cuff down or toe up. It works exactly the same. And we're going to start by determining which part of the sock is going to be the heel. And I've determined that this is going to be the instep portion and this is going to be the heel on this half. So we have the working yarn over to the left on the needle that's going to be the heel needle. You want to divide the stitches into thirds. I happen to have 21 stitches on here. That's easily divisible by 3, 2, 6, 7. And another 7 over here. 2, 4, 6, 7. We'll just double check and make sure we've got 7 left. Yep. Now let's say it's not easily divisible by 3. Let's say you have 22 stitches. You could put 7 here, and 8 in the middle. If you had 23, you could put 8, 8, and 7, and so on. So you just divide your stitches into 3 parts. The short rows are going to be worked out here, here, and here. The center stitches will be just plain. There won't be any short rows in that section. So we start by turning the work to work a wrong side row. We're going to start with the wrong side on the heel. And we start right off by making a double stitch. And the way that you make a double stitch is you slip a stitch from the left needle to the right needle, point to point, with the yarn in the front. Now we're going to purl, so obviously the yarn was in the front, but if you were knitting, you would do the same thing. The yarn's in the front. You slip the stitch point to point, then you take the working yarn over the top of the right needle and you pull firmly until the stitch, see the stitch below, until that stitch below pulls up onto the needle, both legs of it. So I really pulled firmly. Then you bring the yarn back to the front and we're going to purl to the end of the row. We're going to be working flat here, not in the round, so we're calling these rows rather than rounds. So we're just going to work to the other end. There are lots of ways to do short row turns. German short rows is just one type, and that's the one I'm using to demonstrate. I have another video on how to use wrap and turn short rows to make a heel flap. So we're working the very last stitch, then we turn the work. Now we're ready to do a right side row. We're going to bring the yarn to the front. That's the first step. It's a 3-step process. Bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch tip to tip, take the yarn over the top and pull on it so that both legs of the stitch below are pulled up onto the needle. See, here's the stitch that we just made before we turned, and then we pull up, and when it pulls the stitch from below up onto the needle, the 2 legs of the stitch below. Since we're going to knit, we're just going to keep the yarn in the back, and we're going to knit until we come to the previously made double stitch over on the other side. All the stitches will be knit except the double stitch. You can put smaller markers on here. I use these because you can put them on in the middle of the work. You slip the markers when you come to them. So we're coming up onto the other side of the heel. Here's the double stitch. We don't want to work that, so these are single stitches. You can see that there's only one leg. The double stitch has 2 legs, so you're not going to work the double stitch. That's not 2 different stitches, and you can see where the join at the top there, so you know that's a double stitch. Turn the work. Again, we're going to do that 3-step process. We're going to have the yarn in the front, slip the stitch point to point, pull the yarn over the top of the right needle, pull up, pulling the stitch below up, making the double stitch, and we're going to purl back. I think you might be able to hear my dog snoring in the background. That's when I can make videos. The dogs have to be snoozing. Okay, we're working up until we come to the double stitch. Here's the double stitch, and you can see how it's joined at the top with the stitch on the other side. So we work everything but the double stitch. Then we turn. This is why it's called short rows, because you're not knitting to the end of the row. It's a short. Then you bring the yarn to the front. Step 1, yarn to the front. Step 2, slip the stitch tip to tip. Step 3, pull the yarn over the top, pulling the stitch below up onto the needle. Now with the yarn in the back, we're going to knit until we come to the double stitches at the other end. So we're just working until we get to that double stitch, actually 2 double stitches at the other end. Okay, here we come to them. See, this is a single stitch. Here's the double stitches. They're pretty easy to identify. Then we turn, and we just keep repeating those 2 rows, the wrong side row and the right side row, working in 1 stitch closer to the center each time until we've worked all these stitches on the outsides of the markers, and we just have the stitches remaining in the center. Okay, here we are. We've almost finished this section of the short rows. We've got 1 single stitch outside of this marker and 1 single stitch outside of this marker. So we're going to go ahead and work those last 2, creating the last double stitches on the outsides of the markers. Double stitch, slip the marker, so all the stitches in the center are still single stitches. Here's our very last double stitch on the wrong side row. So we're going to single stitch, and now we're going to create a double stitch, the last double stitch. So here we go. We've got 7 double stitches over here, 6 over here, but we're going to create the 7th one right here. And then we'll have the 7 single stitches in the middle. So there's our last double stitch at the beginning of a right side row. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work all the way around the sock twice, 2 rounds. The first round, we're going to be working all of those double stitches as back into single stitches. So here's a double stitch. We knit through both front legs. See, there's 2 legs on the needle. The back legs are not on the needle, just the front legs. We knit through both the front legs, kind of like making a knit 2 together. Just be careful, you're just picking up the front legs, not the back legs, and that you're getting both front legs. Until we come to the end. Then we're going to knit across the instep needle, which is the other needle on the sock, the top of the sock. We're just going to knit straight across here. When I'm changing from needle to needle, I tighten up the first 2 stitches. So I make this one really tight, make this one really tight. Not so tight that you pull yarn from the previous stitches, but tight enough that the 2 needle cables are close together. So we're just knitting straight across here. No double stitches on this side. And we'll switch over to the heel needle again. You can do this on 2 circulars or 1 magic loop, doesn't matter. You can also do it on double pointed needles. I'd put the whole heel on 1 needle. Okay, here we are, back to the heel needle, and we've got these double stitches lined up here. We're going to knit the double stitches, pulling the yarn tight. Whoops, I split that one. Pulling the yarn tight, go through the front legs of those double stitches, being careful to not go through the back legs, just the front legs. And there we go. So we've gone all the way around one time. Now we're going to knit all the way around again and end right here before this marker. Okay, so we've worked till we've come around the second time and we ended at the marker. So we've done 2 full rounds all the way around the sock. Let's see what it looks like at this point. Just put this on the cable. So we can see what we've got here is this semicircle of new fabric. We can see how the short rows were worked. They were long first, went across the bottom, and then each one got shorter and shorter and shorter, creating this half circle. So now we're going to create the other half of the heel. We're all ready to do that. So we've got our marker here. We're going to slip it over to the right needle, and we're going to work 1 stitch past the marker. We're going to turn, and now we're going to make lengthening short rows. The ones we did before were each one was shorter. This time they're going to be longer by 1 stitch. So we're going to make our double stitch, and at this point we can drop the marker. We're not going to need it anymore. And we're going to purl to this other marker. And we're going to drop that marker, move those out of the way. Work 1 stitch past the marker. Turn. Bring the yarn forward. Make our double stitch. And we're going to work to the last double stitch that we just made. Here's the double stitch. You can see it there. Work both legs through the front as if I knit 2 together, and work 1 stitch past it. Turn, so you can see that it just got longer, so we're making increasing short rows. So we make a double stitch. We're going to purl to the previous double stitch. It's a tongue twister. Double stitch. Here it comes. Here's a single stitch. Here's the double stitch. We're going to purl it together as if it's 1 stitch, and then we're going to we're going to purl a stitch past the double stitch. Turn the work. Bring the yarn forward. Make a double stitch. Knit till we come to the double stitch. So each time we come to the double stitch, we work it, and then work an extra stitch, and then turn, create a double stitch, work to the previous double stitch, work the double stitch, work 1 more stitch, turn. So you can see each time the row is getting longer by 1. And we're going to continue doing that until we've worked all of the stitches. Okay, I've got 1 single stitch on each end remaining, so I'm going to work the last 2 rows of the increasing short rows. Actually, there'll be 3 rows because we're going to join it, and you'll see how it looks as it's completed. So here we've got our double stitch, and one stitch past it, which we're going to work. We'll turn our work. And we've got one single stitch remaining right here. Almost there. Here comes the double stitch, the last single stitch, turn, this is our last double stitch. We're going to work across. This is the last row. Once we get to the end of this, we'll continue working in the round. We still have this double stitch right here. We have to remember that. This is the last double stitch on this end, right here. Now we're going to convert back to knitting in the round. So now I'm going to knit across the instep needle. We're no longer on the heel needle. This is the instep needle. And I'm going to make those first two stitches tight because we're changing needles. And I'm going to work across the instep needle. Okay, end of the instep needle. We'll change needles again. Now we're going back to the heel needle, and that very first stitch there is going to be that last double stitch that we created. So we've got to knit those two legs together. And then I'm going to go ahead and knit tightly with those first two stitches and work to the end of the needle. And then we'll take a look at this and see what we've got. So now we're back to working in the round, and we would continue on with the foot if we were doing a cuff down sock. If we were doing toe up, we would continue with the leg. This heel's worked exactly the same whether it's cuff down or toe up. So here's our heel. We have a heel. This is called a German short row heel. Makes a nice heel. There's no holes at the join where you come together on the sides. It joins up very nicely. After you do a couple more rounds, it'd be easier to see it. These what appear to be loose stitches here will even up. And when you block it, it'll look really pretty. And that's it.